A few people have been asking about the rig and kit I use to fish in the Fowey estuary. So I thought I'd just do a quick video to show you what I'm currently using. The rod that I mostly use is this one. It's the Cadence CR10 match number 3 in the 13-foot length. It's getting a bit old and battered now. It's even got a ring missing from the center section, but it still performs perfectly well. This is quite a lightweight match rod, won't break the bank. The only thing I would say is that I think it would struggle with bigger fish. I've had a 5-pounder on it, and it did struggle a little bit, but it's perfectly okay for the sort of 2 to 4 pound fish that I'm usually catching. And as I say, it won't break the bank. Perfectly good piece of kit for the money. As for reels, I will often use it with a center pin, but at the moment it's got a good old Shimano Stradic in 2500 size mounted. All my mullet reels are Shimano's and they're all 2500 size. I've had about 10 Stradics over the years, and I've currently got 5, and they're by far and away my favourite reels, but I do appreciate that they're not everybody's cup of tea. As you can see, I've got rear drag model. Again, front and rear drag is entirely a matter of personal taste. I prefer rear. The thing I really like about the Stradics is the 6-to-1 retrieve ratio, which quite often in the winter you've got limited window of opportunities when you might catch a fish, sporadic short feeding spells. So in my head anyway, the fact that you can wind in a little bit faster than on other reels might give you a bit of an edge. Again, that's maybe more sort of wishful thinking than anything else, but I do like the really fast retrieve ratio that these Stradics have got. Moving down to the business end, this is the float I'm using. I don't know if you can see that. This is a Dave Harrell 5-gram bolo, fixed with 3 lengths of silicone, 2 on the stem and 1 on the tip. I've gone over to using bolo style floats more and more over the last couple of years, mainly because fishing places like the Fowey, it's quite deep, it's often very turbulent, you're dealing with strong currents, and I just think these give you a little bit more control, a little bit more presentation than some other floats. They don't drag under in the current, which is a problem I was having all the time with wagglers. And also I like the big tip on them, because quite often you're fishing at really long range in quite difficult light conditions, so I want something I can actually see, and these do that perfectly. That is cocked at the moment with a Drennan 4-gram Olivet, trapped between 2 Drennan gripper stops. Mainline, I should say, is 6-pound Daiwa sensor, which is pretty much what I use for all my mullet fishing. I've used a lot more expensive monos. I've even dabbled with braid, but I keep coming back to sensor. It's just, I don't think you can beat it for the money. You know, you can get a 1,000-meter bulk spool for not much more than 10 or 12 quid. It's got a nice diameter, it knots really well, and it's very, very abrasion resistant, as I say. And for mono, I really don't think you can beat it. I tend to use the dark colour rather than the clear, but again, that's entirely a matter of personal preference. Going back to the business end, as I say, that's the float's cocked with a 4-gram Olivet trapped between 2 gripper stops. And then there's a tiny swivel. You can see that. That's about a size 12, I think. And then my trace is about probably 2 feet, I'm going to say, of 4-pound Drennan fly leader fluorocarbon. I will vary the trace length depending on the clarity of the water and other factors, but typically that would be about 18 inches to 2 feet. Drennan fly leader again is as fluorocarbons go, it's quite thick, but it's very, very robust. And if I'm using a separate trace, that is what I will use pretty much all the time. It's never let me down really, and I use it usually in 4 pound breaking strain, but if I'm fishing sort of more coastal marks, I might step it up to 6. That's got a single BB dropper shot, probably 6 inches from the hook. That might seem quite hefty for a dropper, but you need to get the bait down. If you're fishing deep in turbulent water, bread, as I'm sure you all know, it's got very high natural buoyancy, so I like to have a hefty dropper right down near the hook to get the bait down and make sure it's not floating off at right angles to your main line, because I just think that is just a rubbish presentation. And then finally, right at the end, if I can get it off the keeper ring, we've got a good old size 10 Camazan 983, which for those who don't know, is a medium wire wide gate pattern with a whisker barb. I use these for probably most of my mullet fishing these days, and the one when I'm not using these, I'll use another Camazan pattern, which is the B981, which is a standard J hook, but is barbless. I'm a huge fan of Camazan hooks, and I very, very rarely use anything else. And again, they rarely let you down. I mean, some people have trouble with the 983s opening out. Personally, I've never had that, but then again, I'm not catching very big fish, so that might be something to bear in mind for your own uses. So that's it really. That's the setup that I'm using to fish the Fowey at the moment, and it works perfectly well in other estuary locations where you've got potentially deep water, strong currents, and a bit of turbulence. It may seem quite heavy, especially with the float, but as I say, for years I used wagglers and I just got fed up with them dragging under in the current all the time. Okie doke, well, that's me signing off. Hope you found this informative. Cheers.